My dear one, I was awakened by your charming letter of the 28th in which you inform me that you are well. I am very sorry to learn your departure from Flushing is still postponed. This deprives me of the pleasure of seeing you for a day. I do not know why, but yesterday I expected all day to receive an order to rejoin you. You should have seen what a dismal countenance I displayed in the salon, for whenever the door was open, I expected to see the welcome messenger arrive, but all my hopes were in vain. I assure you that if you delay much longer, I shall not be able to sleep for impatience. I hope you will not think I'm angry at Princess Pauline. I pity her for her sufferings as much as you do. And the only reason I told you the whole story the other day was the fear that someone might prime you with a tale against me. I'm very well. Yesterday I spent the evening at home. We are always on the watch to receive your orders. I shall also remain at home this evening. I propose to take a drive in the park of Brussels. The inhabitants have expressed a lively desire that I should do so. Adieu, my dear. I hope this may be the last letter I shall write to you, and that tomorrow I may embrace you in person. Your faithful and tender wife, Marie-Louise. Finally, Lakin, September 30th at 7:30 in the morning. A few moments ago I received your letter, which has overwhelmed with joy. I shall start at noon precisely and hope to be near you at 4 o'clock. The Queen of Naples has not yet arrived. I'm very well, and await with vast impatience the moment when I may embrace you in person. Your faithful and devoted wife, Marie-Louise. In accordance with her program, the Empress arrived at 4 o'clock. The correspondence therefore ceased. It would be difficult to have any fuller revelation of Marie-Louise than is given in these letters. We must, however, add to them one that she wrote from Antwerp on October 2nd to Madame de Lussay, Mistress of the Robes. I have not been able up to the present to carry out the promise I made of writing to you and giving you news of myself. I hope your health is as good as mine. I was not the least fatigued by my journey from Compiègne to Brussels, although I was 22 hours in the carriage. Since then, fetes and receptions have occupied all my time. I remained 10 days at Laken in the midst of terrific storms and rain, so was only able to go out twice for an excursion in the charming environs. I rejoined the Emperor at Antwerp the day before yesterday. You can easily imagine my happiness. He is in the enjoyment of excellent health. Yesterday and today I spent in viewing the dockyards, dikes, and basins constructed by the Emperor. I expect to leave tomorrow at 10 o'clock for Breda. There will be only 14 leagues to travel, but the roads are said to be so dangerous and the horses so bad that over 12 hours will be necessary to make this little journey. I beg you to send me 3 dresses for the autumn to Amsterdam as soon as possible. 1 blue, 1 pink, 1 white. I hope to hear in your next letter that Monsieur de Lussay is in better health and that I shall soon have the pleasure of assuring you by word of mouth of the friendship with which I sign myself your very affectionate Marie-Louise. This shows how much credence may be placed in the report so carefully recorded by the Queen of Westphalia. The king has received news from Paris. They say all is not well between the royal couple, that the Empress is very jealous and is inexcusably wrong in her attitude to the Emperor. The Emperor, they say, has been furious at this want of deference. The Empress, nevertheless, has followed the Emperor. The Empress left Laken on September 30th after a visit disturbed not by jealousy, but by a tempest and terrible rain, which only allowed her 2 excursions. After 4 hours, accompanied by only 6 post carriages, she arrived at Antwerp and alighted at the house of the mayor, Monsieur Cornelisson, where the Emperor had been in residence since 1 in the morning. On the evening of her arrival, she received the ladies. On October 1st, Her Majesties went in great state to Notre Dame. The Empress was in full dress in a gorgeous state carriage lined with gray satin, harnessed with 8 dapple gray horses, plumed and magnificently Caparisoned. Their Majesties were received outside the church door by Monsieur de Prat, Archbishop of Malines, who discoursed on the virtues of the two Maries. Then followed reviews and the launching of ships, a full program. On October 4th at 2 a.m., the Empress set out to inspect the coast. The Empress did not leave Antwerp until 10 o'clock. She slept at Breda and reached Gorkum for dinner, where the Emperor had been awaiting her for 2 hours. Next day, the horses were ordered for 8 o'clock. The Empress was not ready until 10. Consequently, they arrived at Utrecht at 3 o'clock. Instead of noon, they stayed at the Palais Imperial, formerly the Royal, which Louis had entirely refitted for a residence that lasted only 2 months in all. There were 3 days of reviews, receptions, and audiences. Their Majesties did not appear at the ball given by the city. At Utrecht, Marie Louise purchased 2 cases of toys, not to be opened before her return. Such was a souvenir she kept from Utrecht. Their Majesties departed for Amsterdam between 9 and 10 in the morning. The traveling carriages halted outside the gates. The Empress entered the state coach, and the Emperor mounted his horse to ride in the military procession, which comprised 4 regiments of cuirassiers, the whole of the cavalry, with a guard of innumerable foot soldiers lining the route. The usual receptions, audiences, masses, presentations, and theatrical performances followed. None of the Dutch were invited to the reception, only the traveling suite being admitted. While the Emperor was away from her in the island of Texel for 3 days inspecting the fleet, Marie Louise explored the shops to such good effect that she exhausted her purse. She wrote, "I greatly fear the Emperor will think it wrong of me to ask him for an extra subsidy for my toilette, so I shall wait for a day when he is in a very good temper to speak to him about it." She had indeed made large purchases. Linen finer than cambric to be used for night dresses, and many other goods of which the name and country are a secret. I am bringing you back teapots, a boucaron, and some old Chinese lacquer, which I picked up myself in the best shop in Amsterdam. This she preferred to running about the environs, however pretty they might be, for she remarked, "One sees so much water here that one is soon disgusted with it." On the Emperor's return, a fete, with its full accompaniment of flowers and quadrilles, was held at the Tuileries. There were performances at the Théâtre Hollandais, in which Madame Wardier, the great Dutch tragedian, took part, representations displaying the skill of the French actors Talma, Duchesnois, Bourgoin, and Dumas. On the 24th, they left for Leyden, The Hague, Rotterdam, Gouda, and the Louvre. Marie Louise had only one idea: to get away from the bad climate of Holland. The Emperor, too, seemed in haste to be off. On the 30th, they were at Nijmegen, and after an adventure at the Chateau of Ottenburg, where they were obliged to stop without either sleeping, accommodation, or supper, the Empress arrived at Dusseldorf, where she was lodged at the Chateau de la Venerie. Presentations were made, and fêtes and excursions organized, about which Roederer, Minister of State, and Bouillon, Minister of the Grand Duchy, were most enthusiastic, having described them as the prettiest of the whole journey, not excepting Amsterdam. But the Empress is satiated with fêtes and is half dead with fatigue. At cards, she answered the Emperor in monosyllables, the others by monotonous movements of her head. This whirl of travel was not yet at an end. On the 4th, owing to dispatches from Paris, the Emperor decided on an immediate return. At Cologne, he would hardly allow the Empress 12 hours in which to adore the famous relics and inspect the treasures. The journey had to be rushed through in 3 days. On account of Marie Louise, halts were made for lunch, and at night from Cologne, they went to Liège, or from Liège to Gert. But the Marne, owing to flood, had carried away the bridge of boats. It was not until midday that they were able to cross by a flying bridge constructed by the English prisoners at the depot. They were forced to sleep at Mézières, which they left on the 10th. At 6 in the morning, and breakfasted at Rethel. From there, they passed through Reims, and at 10 at night arrived at Compiègne. Next day at 7 in the evening, they reached St. Cloud. At the entrance of the Grand Vestibule, the Empress found her son in the arms of his governess. She wrote, "You were quite right to say how delighted I would be to see my son again after a journey of 2 months. What I felt in my heart is impossible to express in words." That ended the travels for this year. Their Majesties remained 3 weeks at St. Cloud and then returned to Paris for the 1st of December.